We lost 2,977 Americans on 9/11. We have lost more than 600,000 Americans to COVID.
90% of Americans now live within 5 miles of a vaccination site.
It's time to go to war against COVID as one country.
That is part of a new video by filmmaker and author and activist Dawn Winslow on the opportunity that we have. We don't talk about it in those terms very often, but the opportunity for American unity and strength if we choose to come together to defeat COVID. It's proving nearly impossible, though, in this pandemic of the unvaccinated because of Republican leaders running against life-saving public health measures and guidance. Case in point, the governors of Texas and Florida, where right now, as we sit here today, about 1/3 of all U.S. cases are coming from. Ron DeSantis, Florida's governor, is now leading the nation's COVID epicenter. His state just reported its most COVID cases ever in a single day, more than 21,000. Well, the governor has banned mask mandates in schools. Keep in mind, every human under 12 has no vaccine. And then over in Texas, where cases and hospitalizations are now at the highest level since February, that state's Governor Abbott, just banned vaccine and mask requirements by local and state governments and private businesses. We're back with Matt and Eddie. Matt Dowd, we have invoked your home state governor, and the floor is yours.
I mean, Governor Abbott is if you looked up Craven in the dictionary, it would have Governor Abbott's picture next to it in the dictionary. He is so bad. And I think Governor DeSantis, who everybody was giving him some sort of blue ribbon label in the midst of COVID because of everything he'd done, now is the highest rising cases of anywhere in the country. I think 50% of all the cases right now, the new cases, are in Texas and Florida, both of them were being lauded by a number of Republicans months ago in the midst of this. To me, we're at a fundamental sort of point in this. Throughout the history of our country, we've always had a tension between individual liberty written into our Constitution and the pursuit written in also the Constitution of the common good and the common welfare. Our founders understood you had to have both to make a great country: individual rights, individual liberty, and the ability to do what's in the common good or the common welfare of the country. Republicans have decided that I is more important than we. They have no interest in the common good. They have no interest in the common welfare of the country. They have no interest in pursuing something in a nonpartisan way, even if it saves lives in the midst of this. And we are at the point now. Texas now has more COVID deaths than New York. And Governor Cuomo was lambasted for months and months and months and months on Fox News for everything that was going on in New York. Texas is now worse than New York. Fox News doesn't say a single word about Governor Abbott in the midst of this time. And so we are seeing the deadly results, I mean that literally, the deadly results of pursuing only policies that focus on the I and nothing about the we. And the idea that getting people to wear masks somehow interferes to wear a mask in a crowded theater or in a restaurant or wherever it has to be, somehow interferes with their right to be an American has become ludicrous. Protecting our grandparents, protecting our children, protecting anybody that's vulnerable by simply requiring in some places to wear a mask or to get a vaccine is just absolutely outrageous. Think about what we've lost in this country. More than 600,000 people. And think about, we lost less than 3,000 people on 9/11. The country came together and we actually misspent $4 trillion on a series of 2 wars that lasted 20 years. We're doing nothing compared to that. And we've lost multiples of more people in the midst of this. And our country can't come together in this because the Republicans only care about I. They only care about I, and they're not interested in we.
Well, Eddie, I don't say this very often. It's actually worse than that. They don't even care about I until they're intubated. And then they have these deathbed pleas to their loved ones to get vaccinated. And I want to ask you about, one of the most effective, Matt was talking about how Republicans weaponize culture issues. None so effectively, even more so than guns, is abortion. And they have taken it to a point where I think in Texas, there are laws where neighbors are asked to tell on neighbors in policing reproductive freedoms in that state, of which there are quite few, very, very limited. This is a pro-death position that these governors are taking on masks and on vaccines. They're now indifferent to life. And the media should be very, very, very reluctant to ever cover objectively the Republicans as a pro-life party. They are not.
You know, Nicole, you're absolutely right. Many of them are politicians of death. We see this extraordinarily toxic convergence of cynical, corrupt, and cowardly leadership with a sustained misinformation program, often funded by right-wing big money machines, as Jane Mayer's piece in The New Yorker detailed today. And all of it has had an impact, right, in real time, because we're losing people. Over 616,000 people are dead. And so I talked about not too long ago these civic blackouts in our country. Yeah. Well, we have, in some ways, one of the fuses is this kind of the depth, the disaster of leadership. Cynical, corrupt, cowardly leadership. And so all of this comes, you know, when it converges, it puts our democracy in peril. So I think you're absolutely right, Nicole. Absolutely.
You know, I listened to Don Winslow's video, Matt, and I wondered, it's beautifully done, and it's Jeff Daniels' voice, and it's a beautiful message, but I don't know that we're that country anymore. What do you think?
Well, here's what I think about that. So I think it's a great message, but I think that a third of the country would look at it and just go, you know, bananas over the idea that somehow that, like, why should I wear a mask if it's going to save people? Basically, that's their edit. Or why should I get a vaccine if it's going to save people in this? I think, this is my view, I think the majority of America is that country. I think the majority of America is that country. But going back to the last segment and Eddie's original point is that we have institutions in our country that we have constantly lauded, that we still retain, that don't allow the majority of our country and the heart of the majority of our country to be heard anymore. And so then we have a lot of sort of milquetoast politicians who are unwilling to fight the fight and lose an office over the moral battle that we're in for the majority. And so I think what we have right now, because of the processes, put the filibuster in the bucket, put a lot of other things, gerrymandering in the bucket, put a certain segments of the media in the bucket that don't allow the voice of the majority to be fundamentally heard. And we have politicians, and I say this somewhat hesitantly, we have a lot of politicians who are too weak to actually stand up for the majority of the country.
Mm-hmm.